Well, hey there guys, I'm Axel the Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaDungeon.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. Our first question comes from Italian. Is there a Zelda game that you think is underrated, like one that the fans easily overlook and thus are missing out on? Well, you know, like, the obvious answer here is Majora's Mask. So many people will say that game when referring to this question. And, you know, this is like, oh, well, it didn't get that many sales when it came out, it's the game no one's played, it's so unusual, etc., etc. But come on, guys, let's think about this, okay? If enough people, because it really is a trend at some point, or at least it was for a while, maybe it's not so much anymore, but for a while there, it was so trendy to say Majora's Mask is the underrated Zelda game. But let's face it, at this point, if so many people say it's underrated, how underrated can it be? If everyone thinks everyone needs to play this game, then everyone thinks it's good. So, I don't know. I really don't think Majora's Mask is that underrated at this point. I think it's honestly just, it's that odd game that everyone likes to talk about, you know. I love it, so it makes sense. In my opinion, the most underrated Zelda game is actually the Minish Cap. It didn't have great sales when it came out, which I think it's undeserving of. I think it was quite a good game and deserved to have better sales. And, you know, a lot of people didn't like the game, but I found out that a lot of them, this isn't, obviously doesn't apply to everyone, but some people who didn't like the game actually didn't get terribly far, and it is kind of awkward in, like, the early portions, but about when you get to the second dungeon, it's pretty glorious. I honestly think it's one of the most interesting games, and certainly one of the best 2D games of the series, so I honestly think a lot more people need to play it. It's really beautiful, it's really fun, it's just, I think it's a great experience. You know, actually, I probably should have said this right off the bat, but I've got a lot of those viewer opinion sort of questions where the answer is, you know, kind of personal, and, you know, I always ask you guys to chime in with your opinions in the comments. So I got a bunch of those, so just chime in the comments. But anyway, The Real Little Sean asks, what point in the timeline would you like to see the next Zelda game? You know, I've talked a lot before about which one I think is the most likely timeline to see a Zelda game on, things like that, but this is a bit of a new question because, you know, it's which one do you want? So, I honestly would like to see one on the adult timeline, like something in New Hyrule or post-New Hyrule, just see what happens there, because I think that's a concept the Zelda series hasn't exactly explored a ton, the charting of a new land entirely with no home to go back to, you know? Other than the new one, which you've made into a home, of course. But, because even, like, Spirit Tracks didn't really cover that very much. It was, like, after the fact. They'd already discovered the land, etc. So I think it'd be very interesting to do another game where they're just dealing with this new land that we haven't really seen before. It'd be great to do games on that timeline because, you know, they could do some more of the discovery stuff, or they could simply just have a very traditional Zelda game in a lot of ways, but simply give us new landmarks. I mean, we don't have that Lake Hylia. We don't have Death Mountain. We have new areas, and I think exploring a completely new Hyrule could be very interesting, and I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think, aside from A Link Between Worlds, which is on the downfall, cop-out, whatever you want to call it, timeline, I think it'd be very interesting to see one on the adult timeline after New Hyrule was founded. Asami asks, what Zelda game do you think is the saddest ending? When I finish the games, I find they all have a sad aspect to them, but almost always have enough happiness to balance it out. So which one do you think is the saddest ending? You know, actually, I definitely agree that I think a lot of them have some sad aspects, but I also do feel that literally every single one of them has a satisfaction element that balances out all the sadness, and generally they're all very happy endings. That said, I think for me, the saddest one would have to be the Wind Waker. I mean, this is another one where you think Majora's Mask, but honestly, even if you think Majora's Mask is a dark, sad game, mostly everyone's just fine at the end. It's just like, oh, there's suffering, but you fixed everything, so it's cool. It's honestly a very happy ending for that game. Whereas the Wind Waker, you know, that's still true. It's like, again, every game has a happy ending. But also, the entire land of Hyrule is completely buried under water. And it's completely destroyed. Its legacy is gone for the most part, except for, like, Link and Tetra. And the King of Hyrule just completely sacrifices himself. And he, by choice, it's not like he sacrifices himself to do good. He just decides, you know what, I'm done. You guys, kids, go on. Go forward. Go forward and do good things. I'm gonna just... I'm done. Goodbye. That's basically what happens, and I just think it's a very dramatic ending, and it's melancholy. It's not terrible, but it is a very sad ending, and there's no real balancing factor to that, other than the fact that they do move on and do good things. So, I don't know, it's a very interesting ending. It's one of my favorites, actually. Black Raven 6695, who got, again, this is the second time in a row, everything, guessed all the songs and quotes and whatnot right on the last mailbag, so again, props. Asks, where is the best place in Hyrule to live? It's not so much where, but when. there really are certain periods of time in the Zelda timeline you just don't want to be. You don't want to be caught during all this, like, Ganon taking over the world, or crazy plot. There's a lot of things. I would just say, any time between two actual Zelda games. When there's a Zelda game going on, things go bad. So you don't want to be in a Zelda game. You want to be living in Hyrule between Zelda games. Jimmy F27 asks, what would you most like Nintendo to change in the Wind Waker HD? Well, I think that most of the changes that I would want are just not going to happen in the Wind Waker HD, so I guess it's just, what would I want them to change in the Wind Waker that it just will never happen in the Wind Waker HD is the better question here. The main thing is, like, there's two things, okay? Difficulty, I would like it to be a much more challenging game, honestly. Just give me a hard mode or something. But they've said they're not going to do that, so it's not going to happen in this remake, so... and the other thing is something that would require a much more elaborate remake that, of course, they're not doing. And what that is to simply make it so the islands are bigger. There's more land. There's more, like, walking around, land exploring, traditional Zelda gameplay to do. Because one of the things that bugged me about the Wind Waker is just the fact that it's pretty much all this sailing stuff. The land gameplay is very minimalist. There's very little of it, honestly. And the vast majority of the game is sailing around. Even with the faster sailing, that just makes it a shorter game, honestly, because there just wasn't that much land to do. I would just like bigger islands, more land to do in a more elaborate Wind Waker remake. So that'd be my main thing. But you know, it's not gonna happen. So epic sad face. All right, I think that's the last of the opinion questions. Finally, so J.C. Lee asks, do you expect some of the classic Zelda races, like the Gorons, to appear in A Link Between Worlds, specifically those races that did not debut until after the release of Link to the Past? Not particularly. Like, the thing is that I think the timeline is kind of made it established that those races died off, I guess. Maybe that's not true at all, because, of course, they did not, you know, appear until later, but the Hylian race declines, so why not the others, you know? So, maybe they would be around, maybe not. It would certainly be interesting to see them in that world, in that format. I'm inclined to think not, though, simply because they've said that they want to make... A Link Between Worlds is going to basically... it's going to be based on Link to the Past in the sense that you're going to see a lot of the same characters and, like, what happened to them and what happened to the world after Link to the Past. So I don't expect to see a lot of elements that we didn't see in Link to the Past, in particular characters. I don't think they're going to be introducing characters of other races just simply because they weren't in the original Link to the Past. That's my opinion on that, but, you know, they could do it either way and it would be interesting, so I don't know. Tiester the Great asks, what kind of gameplay do you want from Zelda Wii U? Or Zelda U? Zelda Wii U, it doesn't matter, I guess. Do you want to return to Skyward Sword's motion controls using Wii Motion Plus? Would you rather have a return to classic button controls like A Link Between Worlds? Or do you want a new form of gameplay that uses the GamePad as more than just an inventory? Ooh, hard choice. You know, you can't go wrong with the classic gameplay, because honestly, like, was Skyward Sword your first game? Maybe, but certainly Zelda Wii U won't be, so... Most Zelda games have had classic controls. I mean, I guess there's the DS games too, but, you know, it's not a handheld game, unlikely to have touch controls. Bottom line is classic controls. We grow up with Zelda with them. It's what we came to love the series with, most likely, so they can't go wrong with that. But it would seem like a waste opportunity if they didn't do something interesting with the GamePad. Granted, they can still do other Zelda games on this console at a later date, so I don't know. And I still think that they should do like a Four Swords thing with it. I think that'd be epic. I really want to see the motion control thing again, because, you know, it felt like it wasn't quite completely used in Skyward Sword. There's things like the swimming that were just not used very much in the game. It seems like it's begging for expansion, and I just thought it was really fun, quite enjoyable to play the game like that, and I'd love to see them revisit it. But honestly, you can't go wrong with any of them, so I can't really say for sure. I'd love to see Skyward Sword's controls again, but there's a lot of ways things they could do. It'd just be great regardless. Saroa Link asks, how do you hope Zelda Wii U turns out? What are the things you want to be in the game or not be in it, and why? Well, I think the main thing for me, other than things they've discussed and things that you've just come to expect in a Zelda game, or to make sure that it's, you know, a little challenging, but I felt Skyward Sword was that, so I don't think that's too much of a worry. I think the DS games were pretty challenging in their own ways as well. I think the main thing for me is simply to make it so that the game has an interesting art style. I don't want to see, like, gray kind of realism, but not really interesting realism, like Twilight Princess had. I'm gonna get stabbed for that, but I've said it before, and I'm still alive, so it's probably okay. I'd love to see like an interesting art style with some realism aspects, but some colors. I kind of imagine a combination with Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time 3 is the style they'd use, but I don't know for sure. But I think one of the big things for me is simply to have a world where you can kind of go anywhere and do what you want as you please. I mean, the main story can absolutely be linear. I don't mind that. I don't mind how they've done the main stories in the Zelda games as of late. But I'd like the idea of a Zelda game where you can simply stop doing the main story and just go explore at your leisure, and there's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of world to explore and things to see. And a lot of secrets to uncover, so on and so forth. I think that would be very interesting. I was hoping Skyward Sword was going to be that. I thought it was going to be. And I'd like to think that that was their idea, Nintendo's idea for Skyward Sword as well. And they've kind of indicated they want to do things with the new game that they couldn't do with Skyward Sword. So, in my head canon, that is good possibility. I just spat. Excuse me. Adam Larson asks, would you like the idea of an M-rated Zelda game? Ew. Hideous Hyde asks, if they're going to make a Zelda game with Zelda as a playable character, as Aonuma hinted, do you think it will be about the war before Skyward Sword or something totally different? Well, this is kind of a major pet peeve of mine, but the war before Skyward Sword had Hylia, not Zelda. They're different people. I don't really like it when people depict Hylia as looking exactly like Zelda. I don't think that's probably what the case was. So, no. If they did one with Zelda, I honestly think it would just be an original game with a new setting and whatever, new Zelda. I don't think they'd use an existing one. If they did use an existing one, it would probably be Sheik, just so they could have, or the Ocarina of Time Zelda, just so they could have Sheik, I would think, because I've heard fans have wanted that. I've suggested it on the mailbag because of that. So I just think that's what they'd go with. But I think it would probably be an original one, like every single other Zelda game usually is. Spurson270 asks, why did the makers of Ocarina of Time refer to the windmill in Kakariko Village as ? Honestly, I think the main reason for this is simply that it was technically the same location as Damp's Grave. You just don't know that until later when you come through Damp's Grave into the windmill. And it's just how the area is programmed. You go into an area and it says on the screen what the area is. And they just didn't bother to program it so it detected them as two different areas. It's simply the same area, and they thought it was more important for the graveyard to say, I don't know, than it was for the windmill to say windmill. Because then the graveyard would have said windmill, or, you know, so made more sense. I guess it makes sense. The windmill is weird, so the question mark still works, you know. Alright guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact information in the description, and I'll see you guys later.